सुप्तेषु जाग्रति य एष सुप्तेषु जाग्रति कामं 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 कामपुरुषो पुरुषो निर्मिमाणः निर्मिमाणः तदेव शुक्रं तद्ब्रह्मा तद्ब्रह्मा तदेवामृतमुच्यते तस्मिन् लोकः शतः सर्वे तदूनात्यपि कश्चन एतद्द्वैता 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 द्वैता एतद्द्वैता.
Mr. Jomon K. George is also the ex officio member of Thiruvananthapuram branch of ICAI, the management committee, and he has been very helpful to us in all the activities and encourage us and correct us whenever we go wrong. He has also come forward to help in all the needs of the branch, including when a member passed away. He has come forward to help the family by paying his educational expenses and help the family even. So he is a strength to us. He is now giving a overall view of the standards on auditing. Mr. Ramesh Kumar S., our vice chairman, will be telling more about him now, and he will go forward.
Thank you, Chairman Ramesh. I would like you to make it very brief.
Yeah. Yes,
all
sir.
of us are here, maybe very few new members, so let's not waste much time. Humbly request.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you. So, good morning to all you. Good morning, sir, and good morning to all. Just Jomon K. George sir requires very little introduction. We all know him. Anyway, customs demand his introduction, formal introduction. He was the chairman of SIRC for the year 2019 and 20. He has qualified in the year 1992. Has more than 26 years of diversified professional experience. And he was the founder and the chief executive partner of JVR and Associates, specializing in corporate advisory services and management consultancy. He has held various positions in SIRC. He has served as the chairman of Ernakulam branch of ICAI during the year 2002 and 3. He has done more than 800 presentations across India and in West Asia. He is a regular paper presenter at ICAI CP programs on accounting standards, corporate audits, and standard on auditing, Ind AS, etc. He has conducted training programs for IT department and the MCA staff. He is married to Bindu and blessed with 2 kids. With these words, I introduce before you our charming faculty, Sri Jomon K. George. Over to you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ramesh. Chairman of the Trivandrum branch, my very dear friend Anil, thank you for those good words you spoke about me. Young and dynamic secretary Cherianji, Ramesh, other managing committee members of the branch, illustrious past chairman. As of now, we have 37 participants. I think it's still counting. A lot of our professional colleagues are joining in. So we are in the new normal of having online meetings. I'm extremely happy that Trivandrum branch has organized a lot of programs and still organizing a lot of programs, which are on topics of great contemporary relevance. And today we are on standards on auditing. Before I go any further on the topic, let me have a brief intro about what is happening around and the COVID lessons and the new strategies, the post-COVID strategies which corporates are gearing up with. So 52% of the Indian leading CEOs feel that by the end of this financial year, third quarter or fourth quarter, the economy would bounce back. And many of them are going for cautious measures like cost cutting and new models of marketing reaching out. And the government is doing all that is possible to protect the poor. There is a feeling that the incentives and the schemes announced are not sufficient in terms of reaching out to the real poor and also helping MSMEs. MSMEs today contribute 29% to the Indian economy, and there are a lot of things are being done. And I think charter accounts too have a role to play. I think the COVID lessons, quickly, if I would say, would have been when suddenly there was a lockdown or complete closure of activities. A few questions which came in our mind was that are we able to pull on for 2-3 months? Do we have secured reserves? Then have we collected the amounts which have been billed? So if you had a huge receivable at the close down point, then it would be difficult to make collections. And the third and most important question is, many of us have been very vocal about being tech savvy and leveraging more on technology. So how many of us had a cloud server where data could be accessed? And initial stages, it was protecting life. Today, the mood has shifted from that to livelihood versus life. That is why, in spite of the COVID still spreading, symptomatic and asymptomatic disease spreading, governments across the globe are forced to open up a little bit, unlock a little bit, because it is having huge impact on day-to-day lives, mental health, social issues, and so on. Therefore, that risk is being taken. So in short, we are learning to live with COVID. So the lessons would be to build up certain reserves, to collect our dues promptly. And third one would be technologically savvy, to have cloud servers access a lot of low-cost models which are possible. There are certain concerns on data security, students being given access. So those are there. Even when they are in our office, there are certain issues which are there. I'm not getting clear answers even from expert on how to go about. Even organizations like Capgemini are now working on geared up models of data security. So that is how we are gearing up for the new normals. Working from home as a new normal, online meetings and online learning as a new normal. But people like Satya Nadella, including Satya Nadella, the Microsoft CEO, are saying that this cannot be a permanent feature. Let us hope that the pandemic would die out, and then there would be medicine first and then vaccine later, and we should continue to interact. He said that the virtual meetings can in no way replace in-person meetings, get-togethers. I'm just sick of attending Rotary meetings online. The idea of being together, chatting, and all those things are very, very important for keeping us socially relevant and connected. So there are corporate captains, particularly from the technology world, telling us about the dangers of being shut up at home and then not connected to the society. While one would observe all the protocols as professionals, we should. One is also encouraged to have some kind of possible meetings wherever possible to keep the social capital unburned and going. So on that note, let me move on to the topic. Topic has been suggested because this is one of the mandatory topics which the Institute is now asking branches and program organizing units to organize. One is standards and auditing. Other one is the Code of Ethics 2019, which was fallen in place just 3 days back from 1st July 2020. Code of Ethics 2019 is made applicable. A lot of programs are being organized. One has to familiarize with the new code and make sure that we are not deviating from the path of righteousness, and we act within the framework of the code and the professional conduct which we are supposed to. So this is very relevant because the Code of Ethics also bears reference to SQC 1, which is Standard on Quality Control 1, which is part of our discussion today. So with that, let me try to share the screen of the PowerPoint presentation. Welcoming every one of you. We have 45 now. Welcoming every one of you to this presentation. And we can have, probably I'll stop in between for some interaction. Otherwise, queries could be in the form of chats, or we'll have a Q&A session towards the end of the presentation. So I'm primarily touching upon SQC 1 and the important practice-based essays. And towards the end, just run through of the 6 COVID-related publications which the Institute has come up with. So thank the organizers, Anil and all the managing committee members, for giving me this opportunity of interacting with the Trivandrum members. I'm married from Trivandrum, and today incidentally happens to be our wedding anniversary. So I just thought I'll share because since I was introduced that way, when my wife's name was mentioned there. So happy that, and we are partners there, Raman sir and Vinod, and a lot of the older members, majority of them have become a brotherhood than professional relationship, because I've been interacting with the members of the branch, visiting the branch regularly for almost 20 years now. So great to be with the Trivandrum colleagues. With that, let me try to share the PPT. Is that visible for all of you, Chairman? Chairman?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
Chiranji,
visible.
Chiranji, is the slide clearly visible?
Yes, yes, yes.
So standards on quality control auditing and update. So let me touch upon some of the basics. I am seeing senior members like Sridhar sir and all that logged in, but I think we need to touch upon some of the basics. So I'm moving on to the first part of audit, which is what is an audit, why is an audit, and how is an audit? What is an audit is independent examination of financial expression, financial information, with a view to expressing an opinion on the financial statements. Our opinion is relied upon by a multiplicity of users. The government, a lot of stakeholders, the government, the lending institutions, the financial institutions, researchers, or everyone who is looking at financial statements with some kind of a purpose, investors, all those capital market players, all of them are looking at. So therefore, independence is very important, independent opinion on the financial information. If you analyze the history of recent corporate failures, whether it is Island FS or Yes Bank, unfortunate to say that there has been some kind of audit lapses, which led towards being a little casual and passive about the way audit has to be done, even in larger corporates. So that is what an audit is defined as. And this view of the opinion of the auditor helps to determine whether the financial statements give a true and fair view. We are still in true and fair. In the US, I understand it is full and fair, which is a thrust on completeness, that all transactions have been captured. Now, why is an audit? As I already mentioned, that it is being relied upon. Financial statements prepared by the managements of larger organizations, likely to be prejudiced, likely to be, a little bit away from true and fair. So therefore, the auditor's independent opinion helps to bring about that kind of a fairness, that kind of a presentability, that kind of a reliability into the financial information, the readability and understandability in the financial statements. So that's how we have audits across the globe. When we look at the various economies across the globe, except in UK and all that, where small companies are exempted, audit has been there. And technically speaking, auditing starts where accounting ends, and so on, the stories we know. How to do an audit effectively? So there also we have to ask a question. I think we have an introspection slide here. How to do an audit effectively is that we should have the right processes in place. So if peer review and methodologies of that sort are made to ensure that the firms have attained the required level of process maturity in compliance with standards in planning, in documentation, and so on. That's how the story goes. So with that, let me move on to some of the audit processes which are being highlighted here. Again, some of them are very elementary, but touch your heart and ask yourself whether we are really doing this. Opening balance checking, particularly, there is a separate standard. I think it is 510. I will just come to that. We'll touch upon. This year, if you're getting a new audit, even in audits where we have been doing, the balance which are brought forward from the previous years is not just arithmetical accuracy and ticking it here and there. To make sure that what is brought in as opening balances, as assets, as payables, are actually receivables and payables, fixed assets. We recently had a case where we got this new audit is there. We asked for the originals, so there are no loans. We asked for the originals of the title deeds. So the first round of explanation was that is given for Poco for changing the documents in the and all that. But then the property was purchased way back in 1718. So we asked a question that how is it not? There's some kind of an excuse. Audit is still on. We would still insist on seeing, because there is an investment of 10 to 12 crores in the land account, and therefore the breakup of that, the tabulation of that, and land details are not mentioned in any of the other registers. So that has to be very carefully seen. The second one is internal control, evaluation, and communicating the findings to those charged with governance. The abbreviation is TCWG. This is not internal audit. As statutory auditors, I hope all of us know that there are two types of audit procedures. One is the compliance procedures, which talks about the initial evaluation of internal controls. And then based on the comfort or the lack of it, we derive during that compliance procedures, we decide on the extent of substantive procedures on verification of documents, on verification of assets and liabilities, vouching, analysis of ledgers, and then all those things are very, very important. And therefore, internal control evaluation and standard requires that our findings have to be communicated with the management or those charged with governance. Vouching is said to be the essence of auditing. But then again, many of these audit considerations have taken a backseat. Auditing by and large has been reduced to compilation of financial statements for the reason that the corporate accountant of medium-sized companies or finance manager, medium-sized companies, even large companies, let me tell you, even listed companies, the CFO is not able to prepare financial statements in compliance with Schedule 3 of Companies Act 2013. Because if you are in Ind AS, you have a different format. Then also make sure that all the accounting standards and inapplicable Ind AS have been complied with and make the required disclosures. So therefore, that's very important that this internal controls are properly evaluated and communicated. All those things very important. Vouching I did mention. And so compilation is not, of course, we may need to help our clients. Strictly speaking, no, but we may need to help our clients. But then that is not auditing. A lot of audit considerations, which over a period of time is unfortunately taken a beating, a backseat. Ledger analysis. I request the host to mute everyone. There is some background noise. So ledger analysis, I used to hear about a very senior chartered accountant in Cochin, partner of a very senior firm, who used to insist on, in the olden days, getting a copy of the ledgers, the closing balance is duly stamped, major ledger accounts, as part of the audit documentation. And my dear friend Ganesh Balakrishnan, a partner of Deloitte in Hyderabad, he is addressing the Ernakulam members today afternoon on company audit. He was saying that, Joe, I'm now looking back, I feel there's a lot of charm in what our seniors did in documentation. We're talking about technology and leaving out the details of transactions as some audit basics. Verification of assets and liabilities. How many of us attend physical verification of stock? How many of us verify cash? Of course, investment because all demat, so the demat statements, assets with outside parties. Physical verification of assets have to be overseen. We were recently engaged by EY from Pune, it was by SR Batley Boy, to do a physical verification of a client in Cochin because they are not able to travel. They used to come and do that. The kind of documentation, the kind of surveillance they do. My partner and 2-3 of our students last Saturday attended this. The client happens to be a friend of mine in Rotary. So we were just engaged, and then we say the entire process had to be, on video. The camera had to be always on. The first thing you have to do is go there. The team has to take a photograph and send it to them on WhatsApp or there. Then the entire process has to be, on video, and then that is being observed by one person designated there. So that is how some of the systems work, and we are thinking that is all not required. Verification, very, very important. Now I'm seeing lot of non-existent stock sitting in the balance sheet of many of the companies. Non-existent stock. Why is that? Because no physical verification, no comparison, nothing. And that's very, very important. Inventory is coming to that. And documents, as I mentioned in the case of this land. Comparing financial statement, books of account. Let me ask you, how many of us get a proper signed TB at the correct level? This kind of documentation is still required. It is not technology. We say that we have the tally data. That's fine. A final signed trial balance after passing all the entries. Do we have part of our documentation? If not, please do it. Accounting standard compliance. If we have an audit program, does the audit program ask the audit team to list out the applicable accounting standards and ensure compliance? I think majority of the cases, the answer is no. And if you look at, I think I have a slide, if not, FRRB findings, the latest round of FRRB findings. Institute Financial Reporting Review Board says that more than 70% of the non-compliance noticed in the listed space and large unlisted corporates is with accounting standards. We had done an evaluation of a company from Bangalore, which is in the education, edu vertical. So in that space, the highly profitable company, about 30% of bottom line of the top line, and then there was a foreign investment which was being expected. So a friend of mine sent me this balance sheet, asked me to see whether they are presentable, formats are okay, disclosures are okay, accounting standard compliance are okay. So in spite of having huge timing differences, there's no reference about deferred taxation being audited by a firm of 25 years standing in Bangalore. Similarly, in Chennai, we had to, for an expansion proposal, when this company came to me, it's a distillery, found that the auditor had no idea even pre-operative expenses pending allocation was shown as a bracketed item from reserves and surpluses. I don't know how the income tax assessments got completed. So to that extent, there's a problem. Schedule 3 compliance, many of us are still not familiar. And students are just blindly getting into the Excel sheet from day one, and they do not know why this disclosure, what is important. Analytical review, trend analysis, all those things are very important. Ratio analysis, comparing with the previous year. And many of us today, information is at the fingertip, just click of the button. If you want to do an industry analysis and say that whether the GP is okay, or the levels of certain, this thing is okay with this. So analytical review has to be done, and adverse trends will have to be investigated into until it is resolved and clearly explained. Otherwise, it will become a qualification or an emphasis of matter paragraph. If it is sometimes very important and satisfactorily explained by the management, it can become a KAM also, key audit matter. But KAM SS 701 as of now is applicable only for listed companies. But there is one term in that standard, if you have read through the fine print, is that all non-observation audit, I will spend some time on that towards the end of the presentation. CARO points, informed reporting. CARO, is it just copying from changing the year and printing out from the previous year? A lot of audit reports are still being issued without the UDIN. We'll come to that. So CARO, when they introduce this particular question, whether removable properties in the balance sheet are in the name of the company, in brief, we just thought, why is this? Because naturally it has to be there, but it's not so. We had an investigation, we did an investigation 4-5 years back in Cochin, and found that 18 of the high value properties shown in the balance sheet was in the name of the managing director. There's no reference even to the company, not his managing director, his personal name, XYZ, so-and-so house, so-and-so place. And it was finding a place, it was lying in the balance sheet of the company. And the company had, through Ponzi kind of schemes, raised a lot of money from the public. It was there very much in the public domain. I don't want to name the company. It was an investigation which was engaged, we were engaged by the official liquidator then. 18 of the props. So therefore, we are a little too casual, passive about the audit processes, sometimes feeling a little delicate to ask questions to the management. And one more thing, let me tell you, to my younger colleagues, let me tell you that we are confining ourselves to the level of the accountants or even the finance manager. Do meet the board, do meet the managing director. It's very important that in an audit scenario, you stand above the managing director in terms of, because you are appointed, you have the right to ask questions, and you have, more importantly, a duty to ask questions and get confirmations from the management. And many of the situations when you discuss with the management, that time only they know, oh, I didn't know that. Recently, we attended a audit committee meeting of a company which is part of a group which all of you know, and we were found that the management was not fully informed about certain things. They had some remote branches and all that. When the reports were discussed threadbare, of course, after discussing and sharing with the finance manager and the concerned branch heads, so you see, suddenly it is a shock, eye-opening, and questions like, why are you keeping such people on our rolls came up. That is not the way management should know, and the auditor has every responsibility to discuss at the highest possible level. And then, because if you give it to the finance manager, audit observations, it may not go to the top management. And if there's an audit committee, do attend audit committee meetings. Do as statutory auditor or internal or do attend audit committee meetings and interact with us. Very, very important. Moving on, my dear colleagues, just quickly, recap of how it has evolved. Auditing Practices Committee was set up in 1982 and it was issuing SAPs, Standard Auditing Practices, renamed as AASB in 2002 and now renamed as AAS. In 2005, I could serve the board for 1 year. When Manoharan sir became the vice president, I was co-opted to the Auditing and Assurance Standards Board. I could serve the board and the kind of work which goes in there, the research which goes in there. We had the great privilege of having very learned people like late Rahul Roy, who later became the president of the institute. And the kind of interaction, the knowledge bank they bring into the whole process is so enviable, and which means that the membership has to fall in line. And standards on auditing compliance are very poor, in spite of that becoming mandatory under the Companies Act. I'm coming to that. Because from 1982 till 2013, auditing standards or standard auditing practices were just a dictum of the institute on its membership. And any deviation, any failure could be only subject matter of DC proceedings by the institute. But today the scene is completely different. We need to, somebody is raising the hand. You can unmute and talk. I'll take a break. You're displaying the number. I'm seeing on the screen, I'm seeing 881575. Please display your name, no? What prevents you from disclosing your name? I request the host to request everyone to display the name instead of saying that read me and all those things. Can I proceed? Chairman or secretary, somebody has to respond.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. Yeah. So now with all this, they looked around the globe and found that because institute, some of the new leadership, when they came, they looked around and issued a new preface in 2008. If somebody wants to start understanding, applying and complying with standards on auditing, I think this would be the first piece of literature which you should read, the preface issued in 2008 to Standards on Quality Control, Audit and Review Engagements. And in that preface, they have broadly classified standards into SQCs and engagement standards. Standards on quality control and engagement standards. And so far they've issued only one SQC, SQC 1, Standard on Quality Control 1. SQC 1, if you read that SQC 1 in detail, or rather the crux of the standard, 3 things. One is that the firm should have a mindset, a clear policy to ensure that we'll bring the best possible quality into the audits. And that the financial statements which are signed and given out by the firm will have a sticker, like we used to have a round sticker behind the electronic items which we used to make. Emergency lamp QC passed, there's a sticker. It's quality control passed. So that has to become a culture, work culture, a part of the system that will ensure high quality. And this is only a vision or a mission. And then how do we percolate it down? By having the right people. Today, many of the firms are having this problem of not having a young team, a spirited team, a geared up team, an inspired team. Students have to be really instructed, supervised, reviewed, and reporting protocols. So the first thing is about the mindset. Second is about having good people. And third is most important, having good processes. Audit in the do we do some preparatory work? Go have a discussion with the management. Get a letter of engagement. It's a mandatory requirement. Evaluate the audit readiness, ask them a lot of questions, visit the premises. Or is it that some junior students are just sent, first year students? So processes also should attain maturity. So quality will come only with a cultural change, a mindset for quality, inner engraved culture of quality, good people and good processes. And all are human beings. Therefore, over a period of time, we also tend to slacken a little bit on various things. This has to be, recharging has to be done. Like we charge our electronic gadgets, we should recharge ourselves and of course update ourselves. That's why we are doing it today, that on standards on auditing. Engagement standards are broadly classified into standards on auditing, standards on review engagements, that is what the limited reviews do. We do for listed companies. For securities, if shares are listed, it is quarterly. If debt securities are listed, it is half yearly. Standard on limited review, that is SRE, review engagements. Assurance engagements, the certifications and all that we do. Other than audit, we do a lot of assurance engagements. SAE 3400, please remind me. SAE 3400 is on the prospective financial information. Many of us happily sign projected balance sheets. Many of us sign provisional balance sheets. They are all prohibited. We could be taken to action. And lastly, SRS, standard on related services. SRS is engagements to compile financial information. SRS 4410. We say provisional subject to audit. Let us not do that. It is not allowed. It is prohibited. We also sometimes give with the caption auditor's report. The above financial statements have not been audited by us, but compiled by us from the books of accounts produced and on the information given to us. These are all prohibited now. Please read SRS 4410. How to deal with the prospective financial information. How the auditor should deal with the chart account should deal with prospective financial information is SAE 3400. But in the company space, in the corporate space, one is also warned of section 144. 144 is a restriction or a prohibition on rendering multidisciplinary services. So as a statutory auditor, you are not supposed to render multidisciplinary services to the client. Let me put my phone in silent. I'll just give me, I'll mute for a minute, okay, please. Yes, am I audible now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So SQC1 we have covered. Review engagements, SAEs and SRS we had a specific quick discussion on. SAE 3400, SRS 4410, one has to keep in mind. Now we move on to the essays. And why should we comply with? Quickly expedite audits effectively in accordance with generally accepted auditing practices. Utilizing resources effectively. The resources are the faculties which we bring to the audit, time factor, and the students we have, or the audit team that we have, audit managers, young partners, all of them are resources, and therefore we have to utilize them effectively and this thing, and to guide and direct and supervise assistants properly. There are many firms who send for audits and they not review the work till the very end. I think a weekly review system has to be put in place. Firms with larger number of students, and today's young generation have a lot of good qualities, but they also are a little casual. So unless they are reviewed and their work properly as to be reported, there could be a lot of dilutions in focus and quality. Quality control goes without saying. Disprove charges of negligence. Our country is not yet very litigative, but in the West the story is completely different. There are multi-million dollar, multi-million euro cases being fought against the Big Four for professional negligence. Many of the different kind of stakeholders are pulling the auditors to court and disciplinary issues. So one has to be careful about that. That is why today, if you look at the standard on audit sampling, all they say that your audit methodologies have to be defensible. Defensible and not artificially defensible. Your documentation, how you have done the audit, have you done the audit properly? To answer that, we should have solid evidence, solid approach methodologies, and therefore this has to be defensible. That is from a point of charges of negligence. To face and pass peer review. I'm a peer review trainer. I train large number of peer reviewers, but the level of knowledge which many of the peer reviewers have are not sufficient to do a very effective peer review. We have recently been peer reviewed, and we got the peer review certificate about 6 months back. We had applied long back, but the peer review mechanism was going slow. But now the peer review board, I am given to understand that peer reviewers will have to pass an exam now. They have to be updated. And some of them are looking at the now it's very fairly remunerative also. Earlier it was not. So the peer reviewers have to really gear up for that process to be effective. So if we have done a peer review and if we are not given the certificate, which the institute says is a hallmark of excellence, professional excellence, and as I mentioned, process maturities, yes, it's a shame for us. So we need to pass that exam. And most importantly, I did mention, most importantly, Companies Act 2013 has made it mandatory. Chapter 9 of the Companies Act deals with accounts of companies. Section 129, 128 to 138. Chapter 9 of the Companies Act. Many of us have not read. We are doing company audits, but many of us have not read this, understood this properly. Accounts of financial statements. Accounts of companies. 129 talks about, that is all section 211, comparable to all 211. So 128 to 138 is accounts. 139 to 148 is audit and auditors. 139 to 148. Ends with cost audit, 148. 143 is a section which deals with auditors' responsibilities. But very strikingly, very importantly, very notably, it's captured as powers and duties of auditors and auditing standards. Caption of the section 143. And 143 subsection 9 is a single line, but it's a very demanding, challenging line, very important line, that every auditor shall comply with auditing standards. Now, coming back to the point where I said, till this came, the MCA could not take action against an auditor. It was only the institute that could take action. Today, MCA, with a very, very sharp sword called the NFRA, the National Financial Reporting Authority, has got direct recourse on the membership of the three institutes, CS, CMA, and CS. So doing this negligently is a very, very shameful thing. And I don't know whether on 1st July or it was on, 1st July, the Business Line, there's an editorial. Yeah. The editorial was this. The contemporary CA. I think all of us will read that. But that makes a reference to what I'm going to tell you now. A comment made by the MCA secretary. We do not expect the auditors to find a needle in a haystack, but that they must see the elephant in the room. And Business Line has said that in the last paragraph of this contemporary CA, the elephant in the room is the falling public esteem of the profession, thanks to accounting and corporate scandals where auditors have been found wanting in discharging their responsibilities. The media has made it a little mild. They haven't put this completely. So needle in the haystack would be difficult. But if you fail to see the elephant in the room, that is why Narendra Modi himself gave a warning to the profession. And later he gave a compliment, but there is something embedded in the compliment when he said that your signature is more valuable than mine. The Honorable Prime Minister of the country, who made a visit to the border yesterday, he was in Nemo yesterday. I hope all of you have seen that. Saluting the martyrs, visiting the injured Jawans who are protecting our lives. Down south, these are not things which are affecting us, but there things are very, very tense, and he had made a lightning visit. So he said that when saying that, it was also pat on the back of the profession, but also a knock on the head. Please do it carefully because your signature is more valuable than anyone. So in the context of COVID, he said, "Koi bhi kanun ke upar nahi hai, niyam ke upar nahi hai." So this is important. So we cannot afford to have these kind of comments made by, particularly from the MCA secretary's comment, because the media says corporate failures, small and big, large firms, medium firms being taken into, being found wanting, in the sense that there are deficits, trust deficit of processes and procedures. With that, let me move on to the specifics of some of the basic standards, starting with SA 200. This is a takeoff standard. This was originally named as Basic Principles Governing an Audit. Now it is overall objectives of the independent auditor and the conduct of an audit in accordance with SAS. It talks about integrity, independence, confidentiality of information, the right approach the auditor should have, and also for the first time ever from 1982, it has used the term professional skepticism. Professional being skeptical or skepticism is what? Skepticism is saying that, sir, we trust, we agree, but we would still like to verify. There's a biblical term called a doubting Thomas. Tottu vishwasikunnavan Thoma. So do not take people, how much ever serious he is, people, processes, explanations for granted. We know what happened in Satyam, a company which received the award for best ethical practices from none other than Dr. late APJ Abdul Kalam. The promoter one morning becomes a little guilty or scared and wakes up and says that, oh, I'm sorry, my balance sheet has got holes of 8,000 crores. And you know the rest of the things. PwC in the news today because of the best project between our CM and the opposition leader. There's a lot of talk going on. So professional skepticism is not taking things for granted. And are we asking relevant questions in the first place in an audit? Is an intellectual interaction happening, or is just ticking here and there, compiling financial statements, filing a tax return on September 30th, 11:50? This time, I won't say fortunately, very unfortunately, because of COVID, the dates have been extended. October 31st for tax audit and returns, all returns November 30th. It is affecting our cash flow. I hope we are only chartered accountants logged in here. Our cash flows are getting deferred. Though we do not have many personal income, some of the firms do not have many of the smaller clients or personal income tax clients. So in July, there would have been some kind of a July, August, there would have been you see, that's getting deferred. Incidentally, a very senior member, very close to me, he called up and made a very statement which was very shocking for me. Last year, last financial year, after completing all the tax audits and all that, it seems I did the billing only in March. After filing the return, say by when was the last date, last time, whether it was extension or not, I don't remember. So 3 months to do the billing after the work is completed return file. And all that is lying as receivables now. What a poor state of affairs. What internal failure. Here, let me strike a personal chord. Once the work is completed, timely completion with quality, the bill should go. And in this particular assignment, when my friend called, my Rotary friend called up, said that Buckley boy, EY wants to engage us. We said we quoted a fees. He asked for a small discount. Yes, we gave because one day work. And in the appointment letter, when we discussed before the appointment is taken, I said, sir, there is no credit. We'll issue the report. It was done on Saturday and the report was issued on Monday. So there's no credit for this. The bill is immediately paid. It was a one-time assignment. And he agreed and they issued the bill on the same day. Next morning, it got paid. That's how we should develop, because familiarity in Rotary friendship is not there. And we purposely delay. Even people who are willing to pay, we don't ask. Only the squeaking wheel gets grease. The saying becomes more relevant in COVID times. But avoid squeaking, put terms in perspective, things in perspective. So professional skepticism is very important. And let me tell you, if you look at the 6 of the COVID-related pronouncements the Institute has issued, one of the highlight is that the concept of professional skepticism should stand amplified. Should stand amplified. What does that mean? Again, explanations, a situation which many of the businesses may have issues of going concern. Subsequent events, debtors would have disappeared. Stock would have deteriorated in quality. For disposing such stock, maybe they need extra cost. So that stock can be valued at cost, which are cared for. The cost is actually minus. So those are the things one has to be extremely careful. The next standard is SA 210. So what is the action point here in SA 200? We have long lectures on standards noting, accounting standards. Now I have made it a point. If someone is very serious about other than getting CPA credit. I hope many of us are. I'm happy that today now we have 63 participants. I addressed Vijayawada members on about 10 days back, Vijayawada. The 130 members were there and 120 stayed till the very end. Normally that doesn't happen in the standard zone.
So we have viewers on YouTube also, sir.
Great, great, great. Appreciate your efforts. I'm complimenting you, Cherianji. I'm not finding fault. Nice to know that we are being viewed, because when knowledge is shared, the effort is the same, but if you have better reach, it's good for everyone. Thank you very much. So agreeing on the terms of audit engagement. So SA 200 is the key takeaway is we will be more skeptical. We'll be more careful. We'll be more cautious. Gone are the days of the Kingston Cotton Mills case where they said audit is only a watchdog, not a bloodhound. I think a via media, barking is not enough. Sniffing around is not enough. Sometimes the auditor is seen as a whistleblower. So via media approach between the watchdog and the bloodhound. Amarjit Chopra, sir, past president, once in lighter vein said, anyway, we are dogs. I beg to disagree. So SA 200, the touch point is that, and SA 210 agreeing on the terms of audit engagement. How many of us have the practice of issuing a letter of engagement, getting it signed before the audit is started? This is a mandatory auditing standard, mandatory from the institute's regulatory perspective, mandatory from the Companies Act point of view. And in a certification engagement, till a few years back, we used to give, we have verified the books of accounts, etc. Based on that, the net worth of the company is so much. Then we said, if somebody very casually asks you, between us, all of us are non-teacher, who asked you to verify? Who asked to verify? The accountant called up and asked for a certificate. Not enough. Today we insist on an email from a proper company authorized ID. Probably at a higher level, asking for it. And then we have been engaged by such and such company, wide email dated so and so, to certify the net worth of the company as on this. Accordingly, we have. In the case of audit, letter of engagement LOE as a format is given as an appendix to SA 210. Please start using it. Today, when you start asking for it, maybe to a client who's used to the age-old systems, their auditor has also been associated for 20 years. His father was also our auditor. Now son is doing audit. Third generation auditors are there. But I think it is high time that we rewrote certain things and brought out some practices. Very important. And most importantly, it is to protect ourselves. And in a receptive environment, when we ask for such things, the auditors, I would say the rating in the eyes of the corporates also would go up. It's just that you don't ask for things, confirmations, what the client would feel. The client cannot feel for asking for a confirmation. We are coming to that. I may sound a little too candid here, but we have been discussing this. So the takeaway from 210 is that from tomorrow onwards for the new audits, and we are now starting at the threshold of an audit season 1920. Due dates have been extended. I'm sure that MCA would also naturally extend the filing date of September 30 because that 6 months thing is there. So there could be relaxations. But these are times, COVID times, where we are not professionally busy, at times for learning, introspect, and improve upon quality constantly. You should work on improving quality. That is a bigger, better, bolder. Bigger, better, bolder. Better is improving the way we deliver. Even the quality of stationery, certain practices. I've seen some chartered accountants issuing preparing statement of total income of a personal income tax client on the firm's letterhead. We don't own up anything there, no? We are just helping them. We are not doing any attestation. So one has to be careful. So 210 action point is, tomorrow onwards, I will not start any audit without getting a proper LOE. That's a term which we use. Letter of engagement. 210 quality control for audit work. That is actually, I have a feeling it should not be here because SQC1 already covers how to bring in quality when I was taking classes, which I would soon restart. 20 years I taught auditing at the Ernakulam branch. Because of our professional engagements, I was not able to. I would really love to restart. We have an academic affairs committee, which I'm actively involved in. So I asked a student this question: how do you bring quality into an audit? So you don't quickly get answers. Then I asked them, how do you bring quality into a sambar or a stew which you prepare at home? So it's all about the ingredients. It's all about the heat control. It is all about the, if I may use a term which was used in a movie called Ustad Hotel. It's all about the mohabbat, the passion that bring into the work. I remember Cherian K baby of Varmendra a few years back. He is now the managing partner. Cherian sir is very senior. A few years back, he had a mild health problem, and I said that I'm going to miss the bank audit this time. Miss the bank audit. I was really surprised. At that age and stage and that stage, you still miss audits, yes? It's not just doing a small branch audit. Maybe he's talking about the SBI head office audit and things like that. So the passion has to go on. It has to be there. So that is SA 220 quality. We don't repeat on that. SQC 1, people, processes, and the strong mission statement, that good high quality financial statements using technology and using an inspired team of people. This inspired team of people I am very, very vocal about. How do you keep the people around us engaged and charged? One is you have to be at ease with yourself. You have to be comfortable and radiate that positivity. Smile, wish, pat, knock. Invite for lunch to the students sometimes. Have a get together. Not now. All those things. Weekly meetings. We have now we have made it bi-weekly, bi-monthly meetings, fortnightly meetings where we'll have the topical matters discussed. Schedule 3, accounting standards, what is in GST, those who are engaged in GST filing, updates, all those things. 230 documentation. Very, very important, but the new standard doesn't talk about like the old standard. The old standard doesn't require a permanent file and a current file. But still, I think that practice is immensely good. Today, all documentation need not be hard copies. We are not talking about a thick box file when we talk about documentation. It could be today, if one asks a student for, let me have a look at what you have done in ledger scrutiny. I've started doing it this time. Last year, I was busy with the chairmanship. Relatively being free now, I have started review audits personally, one-to-one, without junior partners, directly with the students. Interact with them. They were a little scared initially because then, that develops when we ask questions. Then sometimes the ledger scrutiny notes are, say that that's in the Excel. It is shared in the client folder. Proper backup, fair enough. Slowly, we are all getting rid of paper to the extent possible. So documentation, the crux of the standard is, you should have sufficient documentation. You should collect sufficient appropriate evidence, and documentation should be sufficient to establish that we have asked all the relevant questions, collected all the documents, and kept copies of that. Or in brief to say that, proof enough to establish that I have done the audit properly in compliance with auditing standards. That is SA 230, the crux of it. And we have given 90 days time for the assembly of the final audit file. This has been taken from the international practice. 90 days to complete. After the audit balance sheet is signed, auditor's report is signed. Not the balance sheet, auditor's report is signed. 90 days for the final assembly. So I thought there may be September 30th in US and UK and Europe also. 240 is about the fraud. We cannot rule out fraud. There are a lot of fraudsters, self-interest people around, small and big. So in any audit situation, approaching an audit without suspicion is not good. That is a skepticism. There could be something wrong. A possibility that some kind of bit of a suspicion is ideal, and therefore, if you smell the fraud, if there's something stinking in Denmark, as they say, then you should go for deeper dives, more detailed audit procedures, and go on until you are either able to confirm, yes, there is a fraud. Then you have to report it to the management and even to the regulator. Ultimate reporting would be the regulator. or you are able to say that that was only a doubt we had, but subsequent events establish, or we have corroborative evidence to establish that no, there's no fraud. So you dispel your doubt. That is the SA 240 all about. And fraud is likely where people without integrity, situations like the COVID situations where people have something to cover up. Fraud is not stealing money alone. Fraud is misrepresenting facts, creating artificial assets, and all those things is also part of fraud. So one has to, that is SA 240. 250 is about laws and regulations and audit of financial statements. The key question is the statutory auditor of a company expected to ensure compliance with all applicable laws? Answer is a definite no. Definite no. Yes, to the extent that it will have an impact on accounts in the audit function, which means that there is a non-compliance. Non-compliance, there is a penalty possible. So if it has already been kind of admitted, found fault with admitted, yes, it has to be find a place as a provision, or a payable liability has to be created, or a contingent liability. That there's a possibility that there's a litigation. There's a possibility that it could. So that disclosure is very important. So that is SA 250. 260, I did mention in one of the early slides, communication with those charged with governance. We call it audit observations in our office, audit observations. So that is 260. 299 talks about joint audits. Not very common here, but I remember since I did articles in Chennai with Varman Rama, we used to have a lot of joint audits in Bangalore. The firm did not have a Bangalore office then. So most of the audits were done from Chennai. 18 months of my articles, I was in hotel rooms in Bangalore. So there the joint auditors, we sit together, apportion the work, allocate the work, and then properly, so that there is no duplication, there's no overlap, focus is not lost, and towards the end of it, try to come to a consensus opinion. But the standard very clearly says, if the two firms do not agree, I feel that there has to be a qualification. But the joint auditor feels that qualification is not required, it's only emphasis of matter. You can issue two different reports. Joint audit, how to allocate responsibilities, the mutual communication channels, and finally the outcome, all that is discussed in SA 299. SA 300, planning and audit of financial statements. A very, very important standard. Let me start with a question. How many of us have an audit program? To talk about an audit program, there is no fit-all model. There is no fit-all model. I'll talk about two listed companies in Kerala. One is V-Guard. I was fortunate to be involved as a consultant in the IPO, and we had become a multi-bagger now. Mr. Chitlapalli is a friend of mine in a Rotary. We are in the same Rotary club. So we share a lot of things, and then I was a consultant. So V-Guard is a manufacturing company. And another non-person in the listed space, the first internet stockbroker in the country, CJ George. So CJ and Kochasab Chitlapalli. So the audit program which my team is making, or rather customizing for V-Guard, if I take that audit program to George, just imagine how redundant, how out of focus I would be. So, but then it's very important that we have, and these are all available, just Google up, you will get it. Or I have no problem sharing an audit program. I'm not saying that that's a perfect one, but I think covers most of the important points which are required to be covered in an audit. So SA 300, the action point to be taken is plan the audit properly. Initially, if it's a big audit, have an audit planning memorandum. It's a 2-pager. The framework of the audit, extent of checking, the team, the time frame, all those things. And then that is expounded in the audit program. It's the instruction manual to discharge an audit properly. So I said 300. So the action point is have an audit program. I'm not talking about, many of us, all of us have the small companies where they got floated a company, nothing has happened, 1 lakh capital, full is a loss, a small bank account, a payable of audit fees, those kind of issues, they may not be required. This may not be required, but there also, if there is a bank account, ask for a bank confirmation. Larger audits, yes, this has to be done. Audit program has to be there. So in case if there is a charge of negligence against you, the first question is, where is the audit program? Where is the audit program? Is it there? If it's there, fine. Otherwise, please take corrective action. SA 300 demands that. It is not my version of the story. SA 300, mandatory by the institute, mandatory under the Companies Act 143(9), NFRA, a very sharp sword. Identifying and assessing the risk of material misstatement through understanding the entity and its environment. This standard is subsumed to 3 earlier standards. Knowledge of business, study and evaluation of internal controls, audit in a CIS environment, computerized information system environment. These 3 have been combined and subsumed into the SA 315. So in our audit program, in the preparatory part of the audit program, there is a requirement. Prepare a general note on the business of the company. The senior student or the partner, surely if it's a new company, of course, existing company could have diversified into something new. A home loan company would have started the vehicle financing as well, an NBFC. So that knowledge of business, what are they doing? Interaction, discussion, all those things are very important. So we need to acquire entity-specific knowledge, entity-specific knowledge. That you will corroborate with your industry knowledge. Industry knowledge, if it is not handy, as I mentioned earlier, Google up, you'll have a plethora of downloads coming in the form of industry analysis. Then it also talks about macroeconomic understanding. Many of us today are not connected to the economic developments in the country. And I request to my younger colleagues to reduce your screen time, what you spend on social media, and to focus more on reading financial dailies and financial magazines. I, for one, those most of you know, but I'm reiterating, I still do not have WhatsApp and I don't have a Facebook account. And Tim Cook famously said, the Apple CEO famously said that do not waste time on trivial matters. Do not listen to trolls. Since I am from Pala now, Joske Mani is there Joske Mani is there, Kodieri is there, PJ Joseph is there, a lot of trolls are there. So don't listen to. Measure your impact on humanity, not in the likes you get, but in the lives you touch. Not in cheap popularity, but in the people you serve. This is what Tim Cook said. In the MIT, he is an MIT alumni and alumni 2018, if I remember, 2018, pass out convocation address. This was the message he said. So do connected, stay connected to the developments, institute publications. How many of us have had the time to at least run through the COVID-related publications? Or we are taking things for granted. This is enough. Not enough. We need to change. We need to improve. We need to be better. That resolve is very important. That does not happen automatically. It requires considered efforts. So back to this, gain knowledge about the business, and then based on that knowledge of business, as I mentioned, compliance procedures and all that, we would identify and assess the audit risks which are involved. And then that is what through the entity. This also talks about, related to SA 260, it talks about communicating with the management. So without that understanding, send students sometimes, when you ask students about what are the general considerations in vouching, just giving a basic example, when I was taking classes, talk about it has to be supported, it has to be approved, the date has to fall within the audit, etc., the normal thing. I would say that vouching, for example, is all about relevance. Is the transaction relevant in the given context related to the business? Approval says all those things are fine. But how do we evaluate relevant, whether it's relevant or not, unless we know what the business is clearly, what the business models are, what are the business methodologies, the dynamics. That's very important. SA 500, audit evidence. SA 200, the first standard, takeoff standard, overall objectives and all that. It talks about the auditor should collect sufficient appropriate evidence. And let me tell you, please disconnect with the non-professional tax practitioners. It's a strict no entry here for them. Those guys do not let us connect with the client. Do not put seal and signature without knowing the client, meeting the client, interacting, discussing with the client. This unhealthy practice is very much around. This has to be stopped. So audit evidence, sufficient, appropriate evidence. Sufficient means quantity. Appropriate means relevant. Qualitative evidence, good quality evidence has to be collected. Because we are, at the end of the day, what is the end product of an audit? Is an opinion. Auditor's report is only the medium. The opinion has to be based on evidence. Without evidence, how do you opine? We all get calls from sometimes I get called. Jovane ഞാൻ പാലായിന്ന് സണ്ണിയാ വിളിക്കുന്നത്. അവിടെ നിങ്ങളുടെ കൂടെ ഒരു പഠിച്ചൊരു പെൺകുട്ടി ഉണ്ടല്ലോ, അല്ലെ ഒരു പയ്യനുണ്ടല്ലോ, എന്റെ ചേട്ടന്റെ മോൾക്ക് കല്യാണം ആലോചിക്കാണ്, ആൾ എങ്ങനെയുണ്ട്? Same is the opinion on financial information. We give 4 kinds of opinions. I'm coming to that when we come to SS 705. So audit evidence, very important, sufficient appropriate evidence, and that evidence collected has to be documented as in SA 230. 501 audit evidence, additional consideration for specific. It is a logical extension of SA 500. And SR Battley Boy, while engaging us, in the first communication, they quoted SA 501 because SA 501 specifically covers physical verification of inventory, year-end physical verification. It could not be done at the year-end. 31st was a lockdown, 31st March. So they are asking us to sample size they have given. Based on that, you collect the sample, evaluate, get the sample physically verified. We will monitor that through video, and then those samples collected arrive at the stock. And April there was no activity. May and June till this time, yes, related to, and then work back to the 31st March stock. And the reports are very, very detailed reports. So SA 501 deals with physical inventory, segment reporting, where segment reporting is proper in applicable cases. Small and medium companies, AS 17 is not applicable. So that is gone. Only large companies. Non-SMCs will have to comply with the SA 17, AS 17, accounting standard 17. So that third one is litigations against the company. What are the pending litigations? If there is a retainer, a lawyer, or a attorney firm, then we need to collect all the evidence. So
எத்தனை ரூபாய் எடுக்கணும்னு சொல்லு, and சித்தியாவோட அக்கவுண்ட் நம்பர் அங்க தெரியுமான்னு கேளு. பரவாயில்ல, சித்தியாவோட எத்தனை ரூபாய் எடுக்கணும்னு கேளு.
Sridhar sir ne mute ചെയ്തേ. So additional consideration for specific items are very important. Physical verification. Standard says the auditor should verify. And very clearly, no physical counting. It's purely used to oversee that there's a process, people are there, it is documented, etc., etc. And segment reporting and litigations. These are 3 things which are covered in audit evidence. Additional considerations. 505 external confirmations. Today it is gone to a stage where take it so casually that we do not get extra, even bank confirmation we are not asking for. Some of us. And after the Satyam episode, larger, bigger firms have started collecting directly from the bank. And there is a procedure of circularization when it comes to large debtors and creditors. That has to be followed. External confirmation is mandatory because in a recent case where we asked for it, they said, sir, it would be difficult, but the amount which is outstanding on 31st March has been subsequently collected. Now, some kind of a strain that particular client relationship was getting a little bitter, and the amount which actually realized in the bank, and we thought that should be sufficient evidence. External confirmation, because in April itself, it was April or early May, it was collected. So corroborative evidence can also sometimes replace certain things, but that should not be contradictory. Moving on, I did mention initial audit engagements, opening balances. In the beginning, we did mention analytical procedures, analytical review. Many things which we do not get detected during the routine examination, watching and verification may surface when you do analytical procedures. Ratio analysis, industry comparison, trend analysis, all those things. So that's very important that we do analytical procedures. 530 audit sampling. How do you pick the sample in a large audit? take for example, because a Kerala-based, Kerala rooted company, I would say that they take for MRF or any company for that matter. If you're in Chennai, if you coach Kerala, take a large company in Kerala, so any of the listed companies in the manufacturing, wherever. So the universe is, if you take period-wise, it is 12 months. If it is total number of vouchers, we say that there are all the 12 months cash vouchers, bank vouchers. There are 10,000 cash vouchers, 3,000 bank vouchers, and so on. So how do we pick these samples? That is what the standard is guiding us on. It says, to the extent possible, it should be statistical sampling and not judgment sampling. That is where I said your sample selection process has to be defensible if you're found fault. I have to confess here, there's one standard where that kind of extensive scientific applications we are not using. But one thing is about selection of months, we have selecting the lot. If there is like for example, we are a resort client in Munnar or in the high ranges, then we would say season, off season, we'll stratify. And from out of the season, we'll take 2 months, and off season, we'll take 1 month. Stratification, and that is random, it is taken by drawing lots. So to that extent, audit sampling has to be carefully done. A convenience judgment sampling is always one of convenience. A student will ask, sir, how many months vouching I should do? You do 2 months. Which are the months? You do August and November. This is judgment. Without knowing whether last year the same period was covered, and then whether this intimated to the client in advance, then they would know, oh, sorry, so we can afford to play around. That can happen. Again, I'm telling you, we are 1 hour, 15 minutes in the presentation. Certain things may sound theoretical. It is not theory. It is not an auditing class. These are things which have to be put to practice. It has to bring us a work culture to the work desk. Only then that we would be complying with the standards. 550 related parties. Related party transactions seen with doubt and disfavor across the globe. If you see Companies Act, Section 188, 189 register. How many of them are maintaining 189 register of contracts with related parties? Income tax 48(2)(b). The assessing officer is given a discretion to disallow unreasonable payments to related parties. Viewed with suspicion. Accounting Standard 18. SA 550, separate standard on related parties. How we should approach related party transactions. Get a complete listing. 189 register. If it's not updated, get it updated. Get all those transactions. And SA 550, if you see, it is asking for a separate letter of representation about related parties. We have blended that into SA 580. The next standard we are going to see 580. In that, we say all related party transactions have been disclosed. The company funds or the related parties. 560 subsequent events. This is a very important standard in the COVID scenario. March 31st, we were all locked down. So what has happened post-March? Some of the businesses have not opened now. Or the scale of operations are maybe 20%, 30%. Demand is totally down. So that's why everyone is saying that government has to do something to pep up demand. It will not happen. In luxury goods, one would be careful in investing. But today, signals are turning a little positive. GST collections are picking up, which is an indication of economic activity. That has become a big index now. 90,000 crores, I think, is a cumulative figure, but it's April, May, and June. If you see, that has been a steady growth naturally. April, India did not sell any car, for example. Luxury vehicles, so that kind of. But then in the essential goods commodities, farming sector is riding the wave now. Essential commodities, all those things, pharma. India has become the pharmacy of the world. China is the factory of the world, and we are exporting everything. And the Prime Minister got the applause from other counterparts from Spain, Italy, and so on, saying that send us some paracetamol. The world is asking India. That's good. So on that, so slowly it will recover. But then, is that the case with many of our clients? For example, some of the small operators may die out. Some of the, as I mentioned earlier, some of the receivables may become completely unrealizable. inventory qualities, the perishable items. Again, in pharma, what can happen is expiry dates, very stringent expiry dates. What is expired cannot be used. Straight away, we'll have to throw it out. I'm coming to that a little later on this. And SA 580, so subsequent events are events occurring from the balance sheet date at 31st March 2020 till the date we sign the balance sheet. There one has to carefully evaluate whether those events are adjusting events, which is accounting standard which calls like AS4. Contingencies and events occurring at the balance sheet date. It is not yet renamed. It should be ideally subsequent events because contingencies is not in AS4 anymore. It is in AS29. So are the adjusting events bringing additional evidence to a situation that could be relatable to 31st March 2020? Yes, then it has to be given the accounting hit in 1920 itself. If it's a non-adjusting event, leave it with a note. So that's very important. One has to carefully evaluate. There's a specific publication. I'm coming to that. 580 written representations. During the course of an audit, the management and the team, or the finance and accounts team would give us a lot of explanations. Yes, no, probably, maybe. Yes, sir, that was there. But written representation says that this has to be formalized. Got obtained in writing. SA 580. We call it letter of representation, LOR in our office. Are we obtaining LOR for all the audits? And many cases, the managements, if they read through, they will say, then what are you doing? We are doing everything. So we are doing audit. Sometimes there's a challenge of educating the client. There may be a resistance, but this has to be insisted upon. We had a situation very many years back, and then we gave all the institute, this thing and all that. You were in a lot of discomfort. He said, this has to be obtained. Otherwise, the oral explanations are volatile. Then did I tell you, I mean, രാഷ്ട്രീയക്കാരെ പറയത്തില്ല ഞാൻ നിഷേധിക്കുന്നു ഞാൻ അങ്ങനെ പറഞ്ഞിട്ടില്ല അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞത് വളച്ചൊടിച്ചതാണെന്ന്. That does not work in an audit. Get everything in writing, LOR. Make it as detailed as possible. Using the work of an internal auditor, that is from a statutory audit perspective, SA 610 talks about internal audit. Internal auditors' work has to be evaluated by the external auditor. He places reliance on that, but not blind reliance. I think that's a communication channel right from the beginning. The internal auditor should give a copy of the report to the statutory auditor. So many of the routines can be reduced, and internal audit, in bank audit, we are of course asked to refer all the internal audit reports, concurrent audit reports, RBI reports, all those things. Same is the case in statutory audit. A proper license has to be there. And based on the internal audit findings, the auditor gets some comfort sometimes. Based on that, substantive procedures can be reduced. And we have heard that this story also. Do we have an internal? Yes, sir, we have internal audit. Who is doing it? We are doing it every day. So is there any report? Report it, sir. Another one is saying that we have recently, in a large corporate where we went for a system study, this is one of the key points. They said, we have an internal auditor who comes here every month. So can we have copies of the report? He is not issuing any report. Is there at least a PPT, a 10-slide PPT present? No, he will come and discuss only. That is not effective. Now, with that, we come to the reporting part of it. That is SA 700, forming an opinion and reporting on financial statements. I am sure that all of us are aware that the revised SA 700 was in place the last 2 years. Changes have happened, structural changes have happened in SA 700. So the new format is given as an appendix to SA 700 revised. Title, addressee, and right away opinion. I hope all of those who are attending are able to understand Malayalam. Mohanlal as a cinema parnale, Pandaka dialogue കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ടാണ് അടി. ഇപ്പോ അടി കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ടാണ് dialogue എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ ആദ്യ opinion ആണ്. Now let me come to the 4 types of opinion, and that I'll do it in the next slide. ആദ്യ opinion ആണ്. Then basis of opinion. Basis for qualified opinion, basis for adverse opinion, basis for disclaimer, basis of emphasis of matter paragraph, and so on. That emphasis is a different standard. Going concern. Going concern is a big concern now. Post-COVID, whether they would survive. Today SBI's economic research team has said that the balance sheet strength is a key factor. They said in this period of difficulty, we should not look at the P&L. From a banker's macroeconomic perspective, when they say that they're looking at the balance sheet, the strength of the balance sheet. You may have made short-term losses, that's fine. That's a different issue. So going concern is a major concern, and that's one of the publications which Institute has come out with. Key audit matters, KIM, for the time being only for listed companies. Key audit matters. My younger colleagues, I think you should start the practice of reading annual reports. You Google up, you'll get Infosys annual report. Get Aditya Birla group of companies. Good governance. And there you will see that larger firms today have in the auditor's report a tabulation, a tabular form of the KIM disclosures, key audit matters. What is a key audit matter and how the auditor has addressed it? It is a columnar form. I think you should do that. Then it'll let you know what key audit matter and emphasis of matter is completely different. Key audit matter is a matter discussed and the auditor is kind of satisfied with the management's explanation and therefore he decided to drop a qualification or an emphasis of matter paragraph reference. Management responsibility, auditor's responsibility, other reporting responsibilities, including Companies Act responsibilities, CARO, all those things. Signature, date, place. Something is missing here. Not from SS 700 perspective. What is missing? Can somebody respond? Hello? Yes? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're audible, sir.
Chiranji, എന്താ മിസ്സിംഗ് എന്ന് ഞാൻ ചോദിച്ചു. ഒരു സംഭവം ഇവിടെ മിസ്സിംഗ് ആണ്. ചിranji പറഞ്ഞാൽ ആര് പറഞ്ഞാലും മതി. UDIN. No auditor's report, no attestation without UDIN. It's a wonderful thing to insulate us from the dubious operators. It is technology and it's just wonderful. And UDIN is OTP controlled, so you are safe. Nobody can put your signature outside. And I've heard that in some places, these sales tax practitioners, they're called GST practitioners. So those guys move around with the auditor seal and they know how to put your signature better than you. So UDIN is a huge installation, a wonderful initiative using the cutting edge of technology. I used to say that Institute in the digital era is not just preaching, leading by example. Leading by example, UDIN and SSP. Yesterday, day before yesterday morning, one of our students came and she had called me, sir, will you be there? I have to file my form 108. Articles is over. I have only a few days of credit debit. I would like to get my 108. She was on exam leave. And I hope all of you know that exam has been cancelled. The May 20 exams, which are expected to happen from July 29th onwards, the Institute has decided to cancel at all levels. Foundation, inter and final has been cancelled. So there are certain concerns whether exemptions would be gone or no, as if the November 20 exam, hopefully it will happen in November with things normalizing. Otherwise, all those carry forwards, all that will continue. And then this girl came and I signed the form 108. And then it was uploaded from here itself, SSP. In 5 minutes, I got a message from the system that it is sent to RO for approval. And less than half an hour, I saw the RO approval. So with all the hiccups which we had, this is a brilliant example of how SSP, how fast it is, no sending paper to Chennai or wherever, and then waiting for the concurrence or something getting lost in the courier, dispatch not being accepted. In less than half an hour, the whole process was complete. Wonderful. So is the case. Thank you, Padmanabhan, for raising your hand. I hope it is an acknowledgement.
Hello.
Padmanabhan, yes.
FFP portal effective, I agree, but for members services, it is not effective. A lot of things to be there. Still, I am not able to remit my ICA fees because of GST updation. I have updated the GSTN for through 2 or 3 times, but still it is pending with the ICA. It means it has not yet been cleared. I don't know why.
Sir, the thing, tickets are raised. When the tickets are raised, the resolution is faster. But this is there could be some cases of issues, but on a one-to-one basis, not as a permanent solution. I was giving a very good example, which I was excited about this. Being in administration, so happy because last year I used to get a lot of calls from students and members on the SSP issues, which is substantial kind of reduced and come to a nil level. But this is the news for me. One-to-one base, I can say, please share the screenshot and then we'll take it up and see how fast it can be resolved. But that is not the final solution. Why I'm saying is, whether it is Joman as a regional council member or Babu is accessible as central council member, the junior most member or a first year student should have an impersonal result from the institute. That's what the system is envisaging, and we are almost there, but there could be some hiccups here and there, but we'll try to resolve. Padmanabhan is a tech person, so you know how good it is. And I'm happy that you did a presentation on the topic of the tech-related upgrades and all that. So this is SA 700, my dear colleagues. Moving on, 701 key audit matters. I did discuss modifications to the opinion independent auditor's report is 705. Number audit to qualify and qualification, how to qualify is given in SA 705. And the old term subject to is not there anymore. It is except for the matters specified in the basis of qualified opinion paragraph. The financial statements give a true and fair view. So 4 kinds of opinions: clean, qualified, adverse, disclaimer. Like the opinion about the boy or the girl in our office. Nalla payana, sir, nalla payana. Very good boy. Very focused, well behaved, nalla family ana, very, trustworthy, all those things. Iranda, sir, all are loner, team player. Allengil, I've seen that. And we also say that, sir, this is very important. We cannot vouch for his or her entire life history. Is dangerous. 2008 to 2011 വരെ ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു. ആ സമയത്ത് ഉള്ള കാര്യങ്ങളാണ് ഞാൻ പറയുന്നത്. ബാക്കിയൊക്കെ ഉള്ളത് അന്വേഷിച്ചോണം. കുഴപ്പമില്ല. രണ്ട് അതിന്റെ ഫ്രണ്ട്സ് ഭയങ്കര ഹെവി സ്മോക്കറാണ്. Except for that, നമുക്ക് ആക്ഷേപങ്ങൾ. So qualified opinion. I was a smoker. I quit smoking. So there's a very interesting quote about smoking. Mammutiyയുടെ പറഞ്ഞായിരുന്നു. അത് ബെർണാഡ് ഷായുടെ കുറച്ച് കോട്ട് ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. ബെർണാഡ് ഷാ പറഞ്ഞത്, to stop smoking is so easy. I have done it so many times. You can do it almost every day. Many of the smokers want to quit. So those who are not able to quit can find consolation in what Bernard Shaw said. So that's a qualified opinion. Then third is the adverse opinion. Sir, ആ പയ്യൻ വേണ്ട സാർ, ആർക്കാ സാറിന്റെ അത് വേണ്ട, കുറച്ച് പ്രശ്നക്കാരനാണ്. അപ്പൊ എന്ത് പ്രശ്നമാണെന്ന് ചോദിക്കും. Because qualified opinion and adverse opinion has to be substantiated with reason. Then we will say that he had a, for an affair, he is into excessive thing or drugs, whatever the reason which you have to substantiate. And the fourth one is a disclaimer. Sir, ഞാൻ അഭിപ്രായം പറയാൻ ശരിയാവില്ല, അത് വേറെ എവിടെയെങ്കിലും അന്വേഷിച്ചു. ഇല്ല ഞാൻ അഭിപ്രായം പറയാം. I am washing my hands. ഈ നീതിമാന്റെ രക്തത്തിൽ എനിക്ക് പങ്കില്ല. രക്തത്തിൽ നീതിമാന്റെ കാര്യത്തിൽ നീതിമാനാണോ നീതിമാനല്ലോ എന്നുള്ളതാണ്. So that is there. So that is modifications. And 706 is emphasis of matter paragraph and other matter paragraph. The emphasis of matter is a slightly reduced version of a qualification. Qualification alla, but then the auditor feels that this should be brought to the attention of the users. I remember seeing one emphasis of matter. Federal Bank in the auditor's report, Varman Verma 5-6 years back had used this emphasis of matter to highlight on the recoverability of certain balances, not the advances, loans given by banks, certain other balances with outside parties. So, audit ചെയ്തുകൊണ്ട് ക്ലെയിം റിപ്പോർട്ട് കൊടുക്കണം എന്ന് ഒരു നിർബന്ധമില്ല. There are two what's that? The CNDG audits which we are doing. In both, we are giving qualified opinion, not qualified adverse opinion. And we were so disturbed, we even went to the extent of informing the minister concerned, who was the chairman of the company, not as just as a minister. He is the chairman of the company, and he called all the officers, and some kind of changes are happening. A lot of improvements are happening. Even but this year, we issued the report last year. We're still able to issue only an adverse report. The financial statements does not give a true and fair. Quickly now, another 10 minutes. COVID-related pronouncements of ICAI. Then a slide share. I'm chairman. I'll share the slide so that the members can. The references are here.
Okay, sir.
Chairman ille elladrum cheranji aanalla parana anilla
Chairman YouTube lan view cheyunne.
Oh, Ashan. Okay. I hope his tube is working. Okay. Accounting and auditing advisory. That was the first pronouncement. Impact of coronavirus on financial reporting and auditors consideration. 27th March. But 27th March in we lockdown. But I understand from many of the Central Council members that the Zoom or online deliberations are much more effective. Everyone is glued out, so the committees meetings are happening. So 27/3 they could bring out accounting and auditing advisory, very very detailed one, and then adinte further expansions are going concern. Key consideration for audits amid COVID-19, 10th May. Physical inventory verification, because since you are not able to verify stock as on 31st March, how do you do it now and then arrive at the possible 31st March stock? Auditors reporting key audit consideration amid COVID-19, 17th May. Subsequent events, I did mention about that earlier. Key audit consideration amid COVID-19, 23rd May. I'm just taking out the crux of those publications. So one is about SA 315 and 320 considerations. 315 is understanding the entity's environment to assess auditors. 320 is auditing of accounting estimates. Accounting estimates, useful life of assets, realizable. A lot of accounting is not an absolute science. So we make estimations. Even our gratuity provisions, all those things are based on a lot of estimations. So potential issue for entities, particularly entities that operate in geographies that are significant. I don't think there is any geography which has not been significantly affected. All the geographies have been affected. Some of them a little more intensely. So one has to be. Also see whether the vendors, bankers, suppliers, service providers, etc. are in those territories, then what has happened to? Whether they break in the supply chain, whether the debtors would have survived or they would have perished. Auditors should evaluate additional risks like operational disruption resulting in changes to the business model, significant drop in demand, reduced customer base, employees' absence, public lockdown, contractual non-compliance, the effect of contractual non-compliances. But I think if this would come under a force majeure, most of the agreements which we make, we put the force majeure clause. Act of God beyond the control of human beings. Act of God, some people say that's not act of God, it's act of China. So we do not know, but I think this will be, if there is a dispute, I think will come under force majeure. So I'm open for a discussion there. Liquidity and working capital issues, huge, even every one of us are having that. Collections are not forthcoming. Work is not able to be executed and discharged, billed and collected. So that is one thing one has to say. Assets valuations, huge. Impairment of goodwill, impairment of value of assets. So what is happening to Uber valuation? Lot of the companies, I think all these valuations which are happening in the corporate world, in which larger firms are involved, are make-believe valuations. People putting in money, Flipkart going for 1,45,000 crore, and Flipkart, some people say it's flop card. It's never made profits and not make profits. Uber is in huge losses, but the kind of valuation they get is 300, 400 times their bottom line. So what's the ROI from a perspective? I have a statement made by the world's most successful investment banker, which I think is relevant here. I'll just read it out for you. This is none other than Warren Buffett. Speaking about ride-hailing major Life's IPO, world's fourth richest person, Warren Buffett, said, "I certainly wouldn't buy a business for $25 billion. He said the business should earn $2.5 to $3 billion pre-tax in 5 years to even be on the same radar screen as things one can buy now for $25 billion. So 25 billion investment is talking about earning of 2.5 to 3 billion pre-tax, means that look at the ROI which he is talking about. It's about approximately 8 to 10%. But today, if you look at many of the valuations, they're not going to bring in any, and then so on is going on. And today, again, Reliance Jio, Business Line reported saying that Intel Inside. Intel has invested close to 1,500 crores in Reliance. It started off with Reliance Jio, started off with Facebook investing 43,000 odd crores in Reliance Jio. And Reliance Jio is a subsidiary of Reliance Industries, and Reliance Industries is in the process of becoming debt-free. And the prices have been, if you're keeping track of the market, the prices have been going up and still recommended as a good buy. So asset valuation surely will have to be seen in a new light. Assessing and revising materiality levels and discharging an audit. Auditor should also, I would say auditor must discuss those charged with governance and management the impact of COVID-19. How is that it is affected? What is the way forward? Both are equally important from an audit perspective. Specific accounting issues, impairment of goodwill, as I mentioned now, property, plant and equipment. Now real estate is scared. Why? Because working from home is becoming a new order. TCS, for example, India's largest IT company, employing 450,000 techies. Over a period of next 5 years, they say that there'll be 75% of their work home will be working from home. So the huge tech parks all may suddenly become empty. If that kind of Twitter said they plan making work entire employee strength working from home. That is the time Satya Nadella said, don't do it, because let people meet, interact, smile, laugh, gossip. Otherwise, can have mental health and social interaction issues. So that can happen. So what will happen to property, plant, equipment? Huge amount to invest in real estate. There are no takers. If there are, if traffic is not possible, why luxury cars? Think about Dubai, for example. Visualize Sheikh Zayed Road. Conference conference, look at the Grand Hyatt Lulu International Business Convention Center, where we had our regional conference. November, we had a problem getting a date. 25-26 booking Kalyanangala events, corporate events, one after the other. Nothing is happening. So property, plant and equipment naturally will have a beating on the value. Receivables, my God. Loans given. NBFCs, banks are taking a reality check of what is actually there. So therefore that can happen. One has to look very carefully. Defined benefit plans due to changes in employee strength and devaluation of plan assets. Two things. Employee strength is substantially reduced. So if they're eligible, do we need to have a payout immediately? If you're not part of a plan, the provision has been made for gratuity. If not, yes, that has to be paid out now. Devaluation of plan assets. See, 31st March 2020, if you see, if you are LIC group gratuity and all that, there could be a substantial reduction in the value of the plan assets, which has to be provided for in the P&L. It may bounce back next year. It may have a compensating effect, but now it has to be provided for. Let's see, devaluation of plan assets, I mentioned that. Employee termination, onerous contracts and possible penalties. I think this thing is there. The auditor should use procedures as prescribed in SA 540, accounting estimates. Physical verification and valuation of inventory. Valuation, of course, has to be given. Physical verification other than financial statement date. The 31st March, nobody was able to do it. And physical verification not attended. We can do it now. I think when we are doing audits, I think One of our clients did that last week, and we were there, and they were trying to trace back our quantities back to 31st March. Subsequent events, we did mention going concern, yes. These are all things which we have already discussed. Very important to get written appreciations. When we say the COVID impact and strategies have to be discussed with the management, and then the explanations that we get have to be got written in the written representations as required in SA 580. Going concern, I think is yes. And look at the last point, which put in red letters. Reference should also be made to implementation guide to SA 570 going concern issued by the ASB. (501), I did mention that is about additional considerations. And if the auditor is still not able to, best efforts not able to satisfy himself, auditor should modify the opinion in the auditor's report in accordance with SA 705. This we have seen. Fair valuations, estimates, realizability, discount rates, all those things are important. But before issue have been considered, subsequent events have been considered. So those are the things which are important from a standard auditing perspective. So as I conclude, the point is very clear that we need to improve on complying with standards auditing. A good theoretical understanding of it and relating it to practical auditing situations is the need of the hour. And making a strong resolve, a fresh vow that we will comply with standards to be more effective, to be more defensible, to be able to improve quality on financial reporting is something which every one of us have to make. So on that note, let me conclude with my normal slide. COVID has taught us that we are not leveraged, many of us are not leveraged in technology, so we need to improve office infrastructure, have good people and processes. Billing and collection has to be prompt. We cannot, defer like and then have problems. Some of us having that. Personal financial plan is very important. Always talk about this, medical insurance, term insurance, all that's very, very important. Attitude towards work and attitude towards client, detached attachment is what is required. And I've already appealed to my younger members that should cut down on social media and stay glued to things which are more relevant, which are useful. And I think we should also create a student-friendly environment. I always believe and try to practice that our firms are a different system of Gurukulam. But the students come in, they're not workers. They are here to study, learn, and pass out, blossom forth. They are the future of the profession. So an academic culture, lenient work schedules, a decent stipend, making them feel that they're part of the profession, bring about a dress code. All those things are very, very important. Academic culture, exam leave, reviewing their results, reviewing their study preparations, all that can happen in a friendly manner, but not always a pat on the back, knock on the head also. End of the day, as we leave the office, we go home, we should be leaving a happy organization. That's very, very important because the danger is to take office issues to home and vice versa. So with that, I think there's a need to change. But then quoting Robin Sharma, I conclude, all change is hard at first, messy in the middle, and so beautiful and gorgeous at the end. So with that, let me conclude thanking the organizers for this opportunity and thanking all the 70 colleagues of mine who stayed glued throughout the presentation on Saturday. Looking forward to interacting with every one of you going forward. Personally, once the problem settles down, we will have physical meetings. It will be my pleasure to come and interact with every one of you. So let us stay focused, stay safe, and take some futuristic initiatives to be bigger, better, and bolder. You have been with me in my professional journey. Journey is still blessings, good wishes, and the way forward to all my seniors. And please feel free to keep in touch with me on anything was SSP or UDIN or anything that is relating to the profession. This will help us learn together and progress together. May God bless every one of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jomon sir. Thank you for the informative sessions. As always, he ensures that the organizers are attending the session effectively. So, the chairman of the branch, Jomon sir, and members of the branch, we would like to express our deep gratitude to C. Jomon K. George, our ex officio member and immediate past chairman of SARC, for the informative session. Jomon sir is a person who makes himself available for the branch and the members. We thank him once again for all his selfless gestures towards this fraternity. We thank all our participants, both in Zoom and YouTube, for the support. And thank you all once again. Stay safe and take care.
Thank you, sir. Jomon sir.
Thank you, LG. Thank you, LG. So I will take leave with your permission. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.